be good. Anyways, any questions before we start? No. Okay.
I got
Anyways,
a question.
what?
So it says on there something about a catamaran certification or something on that trip? Tell me about that.
Todd, would you like?
Yeah, it's Bonneville certification, and it takes you through picking up a mooring ball, man overboard recovery, packing, jiving, what? Oh, yeah, usually when you come on board a big cat for a charter, it's a little bit daunting because you're going through the electric panel, and down below you've got the heads and stuff to worry about, you've got battery turn-offs for emergency, if there's a fire. There's a litany of things. It takes about a half an hour to 45 minutes to go through. So it can be kind of a dampener if you hop on your boat down at the Constant Charter and this guy's spewing out all this stuff that you've got to remember. So we're trying to soften that up a little bit by having you certify in a big cat, same as what you'll get in the BVIs, and then you can go down there and breeze through the checkout before you take off with your boat. Just have some familiarity with the boat so you feel a little more comfortable. And a lot of people just like a piece of paper, and that tells everything that you're familiar with. And you make sure that you know what you're doing on that.
Yeah, it helps qualify you to rent your own boat.
I might add, where I found it, the greatest help was actually the operation of the motors, twin screws, you know, so you can maneuver the boat. And there's some pretty fun maneuvers you can do there to actually go sideways and kind of box around and things like that. So I found that the greatest learning experience for me. So.
Perfect. Okay, well, we have Sam Braegger here tonight, so grateful for him being here. So anyway, I will turn the time over to him and let him present.
Sounds great.
Do you want the lights off?
I think that's up to you guys on how well you can see the slide with the lights. I want any lights off for you to be able to see? Opinion?
I'll turn them off.
Let's see the difference.
What do you think?
Here, I've got some blue slides too.
Yeah.
Is that better? Okay, I'm cool with the dark too. That works for me. Then I don't have to get too nervous if I make eye contact with one of you. I joke. My wife, I think I may have made the same joke last year. My wife likes to joke that if you want to hear me talk for 45 minutes straight, ask me about my job. Because I'll just go off, and Todd's smiling because he's heard me do it. Awesome. Well, as Melanie said, I'm Sam Braegger. I'm the Deputy Director of the Utah Lake Authority. Probably some of you at least have seen me or heard from me. I apologize if I forget your name. I'm learning somehow. I swear I hit my 30s and I can't do names as well. In my 20s, I was so arrogant that I was like, oh, I remember names easy. And then I think God struck me down with that one. However, let's start really quick before we get to the slides. Afterwards, there's a couple of resources if you guys want that I brought along that you're welcome to grab, as well as I brought hats this time. I think I did sunglasses. I know, right? They're pretty cool. Let me show you that. I have 3 different styles. I brought 2 more trucker cap styles, right, with our logo on them. Or if you're more of a beanie person, we did something new this year. We actually tested out a beanie. I figured sailors might come in handy, right, being out there in the wind. So we'll have those out after. I also have a couple of educational resources. One from the Division of Water Quality that talks about harmful algae blooms. I have another from our own agency, the Utah Lake Authority, that talks about some of the recent winds at Utah Lake. One of the biggest issues we encounter, which is why I started doing presentations like this 8 years ago or whatever when I started, was to try and educate and share information. And as we have a market researcher right now that's been doing some interviews, and a couple of you have helped with them, I think, and she refers to you guys as the super users of Utah Lake. The people who are down there all the time and know about it. So we want to help empower you and others to know even more about it and feel comfortable sharing that info. So this hits on some things like Phragmites is down 75% since 2014. Carp biomass is down. We've put in over 25,000 native plugs in last year and a few other things. And then I got a third one here, more specifically about the June sucker. Obviously, used to be the endangered species here. Now, as of 4 years ago, downlisted to threatened. A little bit of information from the June sucker recovery program. So, just wanted to hit on those. But let's go ahead and get started. If you guys have a question, I don't know, if you're like me, you're probably going to forget it if you wait till the end. So just raise a hand and grab my attention, and I'm happy to take any question at any time. As an agenda, just to kind of help you see where I'm going to work through, Already kind of hit on the introduction, our 3 pillars, kind of a refresher of what the Lake Authority works on, some of the current work that we and our partners are involved in, some near future things that are coming in the next couple of years, hopefully, kind of a long-term look, and then I always obviously like to hit on specifically some things with sailing, although now that I think about it, I think I moved sailing up underneath current work, so we might get it sooner than that. So as an introduction, I already introduced myself. These are some of our other current staff. Luke, I do have a laser on this one. Of course, it's not going to show up. Seriously? Oh, because the battery's dying. Fun. I might be advancing the slides myself.
I have one.
You have one?
Yeah.
If you could grab it, I appreciate it. So Luke is our executive director. Addie Valdez is our conservation biologist. Shelby Kozak is our newest hire in the top right corner there. She's our development director. I want to be very clear about something. This is not development like cities. This is development meaning bringing funding to the lake. She's developing funding sources. She's not out there trying to get a city built in the middle of the lake, okay? No confusion on that one. And then we're currently in the process of hiring a comms and events manager to help us expand these education and outreach efforts. Yeah, let's put it right. Is that one of the USB connected ones?
Yeah.
Come out there. I don't think I brought any spare batteries with me this time. I haven't used this pointer in a while.
I don't know if there's a camera, maybe there's not.
I'll work without a laser, but at least trying to advance the slides. Oh, there it is right here on the side. On,
Oh, yeah.
and
There
then,
should be a laser too.
okay, beautiful. Maybe, let's see. Oh, there is a laser, fun. Love those. Okay, perfect. So that's a little introduction about our staff. Most of you, or any of you that were here last year, remember me hitting on this. These are the 3 pillars, is what we call them, from our management plan of the lake, which is a thriving ecosystem, world-class recreation, and vibrant communities. Now this highlights specific goals from our management plan, but we like to introduce ourselves to people in the work we do as encapsulating this 3-view perspective of the lake. However, in our opinion, the most important is that ecosystem. Nobody's going to come use the lake, and people can't benefit from the lake as a community living next to it if we let the ecosystem go to crap, right? So that definitely is our foundation. But we work on a variety of things all around those pillars. So some current work. I actually stole all of these slides from our staff updates to our board, so they'll chuckle when they find out I just took all of their stuff. Our executive director shared some information around media reach. As I was explaining at the beginning, one of the biggest issues Utah Lake faces, in my opinion, is not actually any of the problems that people would say occur with it. It's how we all think about it, right? Improving Utah Lake, there definitely is some work that needs to be done, right? Algae blooms is an issue. Although it's doing better, there needs to be improvement. Water safety is an issue. There's a lack of amenities. I could go on. But honestly, the biggest issue is how we think about the lake and how we treat it and what we want done with it. And so a lot of the work our agency is trying to tackle right now has to do with trying to influence and improve public perception of the lake. So he put together a couple of slides hitting on, we had a public relations firm helping us with some improving the frequency of our interactions with the media and improving the quality of those stories and hopefully the optimistic and positive nature of those stories. So this is just headlining some of the screenshots. I think he said this was in 2024. There were 36 positive stories about Utah Lake, and they estimated that reached over 600,000 people. So really glad to have more positive stories coming out. As you saw, those varied across the duck nests that are going into Provo Bay, the planting parties were really popular in the news that we've been doing vegetation on the shoreline, and a variety of other topics. He also hit on the fact that we've been improving funding sources for the lake. That's honestly been another pain point under the improvement section of what needs to happen at the lake, is that there wasn't money to do it with. There wasn't a property tax, a sale, there wasn't something like that until the authority was created. The commission that I worked for before, the Utah Lake Commission, actually was just funded off of membership contributions. And we didn't have staff or the experience to try and seek outside funding. So that's why we have our development director to specialize in that, but we've already been able to hit some goals before we brought her on to try and bring grants, state grants, federal grants, private donations, and others to try and help take care of the lake. We also received, thanks to Congressman Curtis, now Senator Curtis, a $5 million appropriation that went to UVU that we helped lobby for to help fund a nature center at Utah Lake. So I'll have a little bit of information about that coming. He also wanted to hit on just some of the improvements of the lake health over the last year. So this number at the top here, 3,500 acres of frag, that's Phragmites treated. I don't know if anybody knows just how many acres we used to have to treat in the very beginning. I believe the number in, was it 2014, I think, when they first surveyed, it was close to 10,000 acres of land along the lake had phragmites that needed to be addressed. So that demonstrates to you in,
So does the high water kill them phragmites?
to some degree, it's only once it gets deep enough, and I forget the exact amount, our biologists would know that answer, but they do thrive even in a couple of feet of water. So it has to get pretty deep before it prohibits their growth or affects it. So right now, most of the treatment ends up being a two-stage chemical and mechanical treatment of spraying an herbicide and mowing them. But we've also tested other technologies like grazing. We're working now with how little regrowth there is on planting. So last year, and this is actually, last calendar year, we put in 25,000 plants, 37 trees, and I think it's actually not mentioning, we did a few what are called sod mats. Think of like sod in your lawn, but it's actually a wetland plant instead of grass like in your lawn. So we tested out a few dozen of those too. So now, because we have as little regrowth as we have, we're able to start looking at seeding, planting, sod mats, and trees to start filling in with native and desirable vegetation to be able to compete with those phragmites. Just turn on Do Not Disturb. Here's my phone will stop vibrating. Okay, some operations and recreation stuff. This is my bread and butter. So this is a project that I oversaw last year, which was installing counters at the access points at the lake. A challenge we had both in trying to manage the lake and make good management decisions, as well as trying to secure additional funding, like tourism funding, that can be a funding source for improvements at the lake, is we had no idea how many people came to the lake. The only number that you could secure for the lake was here at the state park, and that's because all of the state parks in Utah do an estimation of visitation. What I mean by that is they don't count cars, they don't count people. They do a formula based off of their revenues that also takes into consideration things like annual passes, because a lot of people buy annual passes, they have to kind of estimate how many people come to the park. To be honest though, I think that estimate is low from what numbers we're seeing so far. So what the Lake Authority did is we went and bought access point, or count, they're called eco counters is the brand, either a pedestrian counter or a vehicle counter for all 27 public access points that we knew of at the time, and I'll get to that in a minute, so that we can actually have a count, a number to work off of. Now obviously with vehicles we're going to have to make some assumptions as well, so we're doing an economic impact analysis right now. It's going to launch in the next month, I think, and one of the questions will be, hey, when you visit the lake, how many people do you typically bring with you? So that we can try and start quantifying, not just a guess of, well, the average car holds 4 people. Instead it's 90% of the people that say they actually went to the lake said they brought 1 person with them. We're going to go off of that, right? So these have been installed. We have them, like I said, at all the public access points. We have a couple as well for trails to try and document trail usage, and we're looking at trying to acquire additional counters soon to help with tracking that. This is just some additional info. I won't spend too much time on it, but this already illustrated, I think I took this slide, this is a little out of date. I think I took this in November. But at the time, Vineyard Beach had the most counts collected, but you'll notice there's a couple that are empty here. Not all of these broadcasts, some of them I have to go manually out and collect them like once a quarter. So we didn't have any numbers in here, right? And this was, they also got installed at different times. We started installing in early August, I think, and finished like the second week of November. So the counts are going to vary across them. But the benefit will be these counters will operate 365 days a year in all seasons because of how they're designed to function, and we can get counts and see where are people going to the lake. Now, just to calm any fears or paranoia people might be feeling, because when I started talking about this once to a city council, they were really concerned that I was doing something like with mobile phone tracking or something. No. This is a laser beam or an electrical field, and it counts a body or a car going through it. That's it.
That
There's
sounds a lot safer.
Yeah, right. Sounds safe when I say laser beam. But we're not, this is no privacy. We're not trying to track, document, nothing like that. We're just trying to get a count of people going in and people going out at the lake. So that's something that's going to help guide and justify securing tourism dollars. The county really wants to invest tourism dollars in improving access points and marinas and things, but they want data to be able to justify that. So in doing this, we can say these many people visited, and our economic impact analysis will give them a number of, they estimate X number of dollars were spent in Utah County because of that. And then we can go secure more funding from them as a funding source.
So it looks like Vineyard does 22,000, Vineyard Beach and Vineyard.
So it was quite high, and that was one of the first ones installed in August, so it'll have a higher number on this. However, this is also, I could be right or wrong, but I think this is counting in and out. So Vineyard Beach, it's counting a laser of a person walking either direction and adding it up, so we have to parse it out.
Where is it?
Also,
Where
Vineyard
is it?
Beach, sorry?
Where is it?
Oh, Vineyard Beach is the beach just south of Linden Marina. It's a public city
Oh, that
beach.
little bitty thing?
Mhm.
Oh,
However, you'll understand why now that you know which area I'm talking about. The parking lot is across the road,
yes.
and we didn't want to do a vehicle counter here because we didn't feel there was a good bottleneck to count cars because it's such a wide entrance. So this one's a pedestrian counter at the top of the stairs.
Huh.
So Vineyard's numbers, we're gonna have to learn, and we're just collecting at the moment, we haven't done a lot of analysis, but we're gonna have to adjust those numbers, because for instance, me, if I go to Vineyard with my family, there's 4 of us, that's 4 counts, right? But if all 4 of us go back and forth to our car 4 times to unload, that's a lot of counts.
Oh, yeah.
So we're gonna have to do some refinement across all of these. We also had to, where is it, Airport Dyke Road. We installed a pedestrian counter because they cut off vehicle access on it a few years back. But we forgot that the airport tower is back there, and so they drive their vehicles back there as staff. And we found out that the pedestrian, I shouldn't have said laser beam, infrared, because it registers heat, it was counting every car as a few hundred people.
Oh, wow.
And so we actually had to get the equipment specialized so that it can parse out between vehicles and pedestrians. So it's a work in progress, but this is just starting to illustrate some way of quantifying so that we can do things like secure funding, like I said, but more importantly, make good management decisions. If nobody's going to an access point, we need to find out why. If a ton of people are going to an access point, we're starting to see a lot of damage, that helps us make better management decisions as well. Because we want to do that off of actual data, not how many people did Sam see there the last time he was there 60 days ago. So we're hopeful that that will guide information. This just shows some of the kinds of information we can see from this. So like this number up here, when I took the screenshot in November, showed that across all the access points, it counted 95 visitations. The peak day was August 31st. There were 3,825 visits recorded on that day. This is a heat map showing where we get more visitation. Is anybody surprised that that one's the highest? I don't think so. That's likely going to be our highest. This actually breaks it down by access points, so we can look at percentages of where to like see visitation. This is the daily traffic chart. So just some helpful information for us in making those decisions and our partners as well. I mentioned 27, but I found out some new things. Yeah, I mentioned I worked here for 8 years. There's 35 public access points at Utah Lake. Had no idea. Most of those extra ones, I was not aware of. Those 8 are what are called sportsman's access. They're DWR fishing or hunting access points. So I don't feel entirely bad that I didn't know that. But the good news is we have more access points than we thought. So we can include those in our plans for improvement. So speaking of plans, this is an effort that I'm working on currently. Some of you may have heard from me yet, and I think a couple, Melanie, you were interviewed by Zoe, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that effort was a part of this. She's working with our consultant, Bike Utah. They're the ones doing the plan, and she was doing some public input interviews to try and guide what we want to do for recreation. So the recreation access plan for the Lake Authority is our 10-year plan for recreation improvements at the lake. Now we do have to keep things broader because in the end, we have to get them approved, right? Like a city can say, we're gonna do a park here because it's their land and they can say that. We don't actually own any land, nor do we run any of the marinas. So it will be broader in what we want to do. It's going to be a lot of recommendations. But basically what they're doing is they're assessing the current access points. They sent somebody around, looked at all of them, documented what looks good, what looks bad, what kind of needs are there. And then they evaluated potential future recreation improvements. That's part of where we did some interviews with some different recreation user groups. There's a survey being developed that we'll send out as well that I can make sure comes to this group. And then that's the next step, gathering that input. Then they're writing their actual recreation access plan, the document that will guide us with, here's the 10-year plan of what we're doing when, what are our priorities, and also developing an annual feedback strategy. This was a request I made to them specifically because one problem with plans in government is they make them and then they just put them on the shelf. And I really want this plan to be a live or a living document, something we can pivot when new ideas come up or pain points arise. And so we're planning to try and develop, we're not sure exactly the tool yet, maybe something like a Qualtrics survey or something, but where one idea we're working on right now is like a QR code or a URL that you could, a QR code that you could scan at any access point you're at, and it'll pop up and say, hey, which access point are you at? Okay, I'm at Mill Race or the state park. what's your concern? Is there trash? Do you see garbage? Do you see vandalism? Do you want to see an improvement here? And that way we have that out there regularly for the public to be able to comment on. I really like the bathrooms you put in at Sandy Beach, or I hate the condition of the boat ramp at the state park. Make sure they're really walking in. But we want to make sure that we're not just making decisions that we think are a good idea, but we're hearing from people who are using the lake. We added in some additional work. They are finished the assessment report. We're doing some workshops, including we're actually working out with the landowners. We're going to do a series of 4 workshops to talk with the adjacent landowners, which as far as I'm aware has never been done. Something like that where the landowners themselves, they're adjacent to the lake, get to come together and provide feedback and input on what's being done. So that's exciting to have that progress. Oh, sorry, timing. That's about halfway through. I think our target is to be done by May. So the public input stuff is going to start here in the next month or so. The workshops are going to be, I think, in April, if I remember correctly. And then they're trying to draft the rest of the plan and have it ready by May so that we can begin to act on it in July in our next fiscal year. But sneaky that I am, I'm already starting on some of the stuff anyway because it's important enough to me that we're doing it now. Something else for recreation that we've done, I know, is Ori here? I should have looked before I started. He didn't come? Darn it. I was talking with him about our small grants program. Unfortunately, you have to be a city government or a nonprofit. You can blame the legislature for passing a bill last year that tied my hands in that way. But this is a small grant program we started to try and fund recreation improvements at the lake. So it's small scale, it's in the tens of thousands type thing, but something to help support new programs, new efforts. Like last year we did, we funded a volleyball station, which is almost done with its permitting. To be put in at Vineyard Beach. We helped Saratoga Springs with repairing some of their docks. I don't know if any of you remember that dock on the north side was damaged for years. We paid for that to be improved. Santa Quin City did a teen sports camp on the lake, and then Paddle with Care is a new nonprofit that's helping us at the lake to do more paddling and water safety awareness. Speaking of water safety, these are just a few items we've worked on. I think I mentioned some of these last year too. Obviously, Windy Lookout, we love working with Sean and helping provide, we installed one of the sensors that provides data. Is Sean here tonight too? Come on, the ones I do know names for aren't here. That's not fair. The Life Jacket Loaner Program is something that we launched at the lake to provide life jackets. The Paddle with Care is a water safety event we started in May, and the Water Safety Awareness Month campaign. This is one I wanted to make sure I called out. I don't even know who it was, but it was somebody in this room when I asked, what can we do more for water safety, that said, I want to have a wind sensor out in the middle of the lake. And I don't know if the word got back to you guys, but we did that. You were welcome. We don't have the data up yet. They installed it this last season, but we had some coding problems because it's like an API, I don't even know what the heck that is, an API key, if anybody's a computer person, where we can live access that data, and we didn't quite close the gap on finding a programmer to put it on our website or some other resource. I'd love to tie it into Sean's information as well, and Windy Lookout.
When would that be available, do you think?
So I hope this coming spring when they launch the buoys, it'll be live. The other downside is obviously it's only a summertime thing. I think DWQ usually puts it out in late April, early May, and then they take them off in November. But that's prime sailing season, so it works great anyway, right? So if I remember correctly, it is pretty basic, and it's just on one of them, but it is I think it's wind speed and wind direction, if I remember correctly. So they were excited to partner with us on that and be able to do that.
So how do you access that?
So that's what I'm saying is I have like the link to look at it, but it's not really user friendly. It's like a data chart and stuff. It's not like, it doesn't have like a compass or something really easy to read. So hopefully this spring before, I can't give you an exact month because I found a programmer and I'm now trying to get him up to speed on this project.
So I guess I'm asking, once it's active, how do we access it?
So my plan is to have it very minimum, it's posted on our website. We have a couple different like recreation pages on our site that could be accessible, but I'd also like to do as much broadcasting as we can. So for instance, Sean with Windy Lookout, if there's a way to tie it into his app, we'd love for that to happen. If we can get it to the marinas to put it on their website, we'd love to do that too. We just need to figure out what's the best method, and I'm not a coder, so I have no idea what the final product will look like yet.
Do you know where the buoys are deployed?
I don't know the exact location. They do 3 on Utah Lake, and my request is just that it be the one in the middle. They have one in Provo Bay, and I think 2 in the middle, but like one's more centrally-ish to south, and then one's further north, if I remember correctly. But yeah, in the part of a lift, it cost us around, I think it was about $3,000 for the equipment. The issue is the wear and tear. Turns out DWQ had actually done one before, that's why they were willing to do it again, because their battery was designed to handle it. But the equipment wears out because of the wave action, sometimes within as few as 12 months. So it's like an annual commitment, and DWQ didn't have the budget to keep doing that. So when we said, hey, we'd love to help with that, that's why they were on board. So we're still figuring it out. I would hope that it can be a regular seasonal thing, that it's out there every year for people.
I have the link to it.
Yeah,
I can post it on the.
Did I send it out to somebody at some point?
Someone gave it to me.
I think oh, that's okay. I'm saying, maybe I did share the
You
URL.
gave it to me and said we could share it. It was linked on Wendy Lookout.
Yeah, okay.
Does it look any nicer now? Like, it was pretty crappy when I first looked at it.
The link from you is interesting. You have to learn kind of how to look
Yeah.
at it.
Okay,
But-
so there, like I said, there is that URL, and it's totally fine. You can share it
Yeah,
around
I-
anybody you want. It's not
Yeah.
private.
I think didn't we post it on
I
there?
think we did, we
Yeah, we
posted
did.
it
But
again.
I'll post, yeah, we'll post it.
Oh, that's right, because I texted you when we finally got it up, because I was so excited. Okay, now I
Yes.
remember.
And it
Yeah.
wasn't Wendy Lookout
It
too,
wasn't
that's
Wendy
how I saw it.
Lookout.
Okay, good.
You
Good.
did tie it in.
Well, I am totally okay with being wrong in this moment. I'm glad to hear
Yeah.
that. I still think we'd like to try and put it in some more user-friendly
Right.
method.
It
Kinda like-
it is really helpful though.
It's
I mean,
so
Yeah,
it-
it's
Oh,
good.
it was
it's
fabulous.
really good.
I'm really glad to hear that. We really appreciate you guys giving us that feedback and that we could help. As
We
far
just
as
need two-
sailing,
We just need 2 more.
yeah, right, keep doing it. And we'll have to see, they might be able to, that might be an option. The regatta, one thing I wanted to mention about Sailing for the Regatta, the Utah Lake Festival date has changed for this year. There is a partnership emerging with the Provo Farmers Market to partner and do their farmers market here at the state park as a part of the festival. They couldn't do it on the 7th, is that what the first Saturday is, I think? Yeah. So we've moved the festival up to the 31st. I've already started some conversations with Melanie about, I'm game with whatever the crowd wants to do, whether you guys can talk another time about, do we move the regatta to, do we keep it on the same date, do a different date entirely? We're, as an agency, still happy to sponsor the event and help raise awareness of it and improve it in whatever way we can.
31st of what month?
Of May, so the last Saturday in
So
May.
don't anybody put that on your calendar yet.
Yeah, don't stress about it yet, but I wanted to say like, hey, heads up, this is happening.
Yeah. and then-
But,
Biggest day of the year, that's what we need.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
Just go into my crystal ball and divine that for you. The part of the reason why we had to make a shift is we're trying to grow the festival. Last year, I think we had just shy of 2,500 participants. Before the pandemic, I think the highest I hit was about 3,000, and we're trying to grow it well beyond that. So one of the things we're doing is we're adding additional events and trying to shift it more into like a city festival approach, like Freedom Days in Provo or Orem Summerfest, where Orem Summerfest is a week of events, right? And you go to the farmer's market, or you go to the band night, or whatever it might be. So this year, we're working on, the festival itself is gonna have a farmer's market at it. We've also talked about, we're gonna add bike rides, because the Pearl River Delta project just opened up last fall. We're gonna do electric or e-bike tours into the Delta. We're also talking about, obviously you all heard about the passing of Josh Holt. One thing he really wanted to see, geez,
Oh, I did the same.
I wasn't expecting that.
I realized about that.
one thing he really wanted to see at the festival was paddleboard jousting. And so I have our events coordinator working on trying to make that happen this year in his honor. We're also partnered with Vineyard. We're gonna try and do a drone show at the lake or close to the lake at one of their city parks on, I think, the 6th of June we're talking about. So we're trying to expand what the festival is and draw more attention to it, get more participation. So definitely circle back, we can talk another day more on that. Around sailing, obviously we love having the participation from Todd and from others at our field trips. That's always a wonderful touch point. The kids have a blast learning about sailing. Promotional efforts, this is something I'd love to improve on once we actually have a communications manager that can do it, because I don't have any time. To start doing more content and making people aware, whether it's videos or starting up our podcast again. I would love to have that happen, to talk more about these kinds of things. So as I'm finishing up at the end, just because I want to make sure I get through all my slides, keep this question in mind. Is there more we can do to help with sailing? Yes.
I keep forgetting to ask you, so I'll ask you now. The video, the commercial. Where's the
Oh,
commercial?
yes, the advertising campaign. I will hit on that. I have that on a slide.
Okay.
I was tempted to show you guys one of the videos, but it's not, like, we're not done. We have to change a couple of things. But I'm excited for it. Okay, committees and work groups, I won't hit on too much, but you can see from the different names, we're interested in so many topics in the lake, and we realize we are not the experts. Yes, we're the people who are lucky enough, me and my staff, to do this all the time, full time, and we love that, but we do not know all the answers. And so that's why we have an advisory committee, a conservation and trails committee, landowners work group, a vegetation work group, planning, recreation, and others. There are plans for a water quality one, a water levels one, trying to pull on the strengths of various partners that know good information can help us make good decisions as we coordinate the management of the lake. Other operations updates, see, no, I didn't put it on this one, Dana. I was about to say, see, it's right here. It's not. It's not here. This is an interesting one. We're working on a mitigation feasibility study. This is basically evaluating some land at the lake on the southern end to see if we can mitigate in order to secure credit for that in order to do improvements at the lake. So for instance, I'm going to throw out another name because I know he's not here. Derek's not here.
Right.
An example, Derek said, why don't we do a new marina on the lake? Cool idea, really, really difficult to make happen. I don't know if anybody's been a part of that conversation, but it's a good example for this point. If we wanted to do a whole new marina, we're going to be negatively impacting wetlands and lake bed. And so you have to mitigate for that. If you're going to destroy wetland over here, you have to improve wetland over here. So we're working on that idea to try and help with things like expanding marinas or extending the trail, because sometimes we're going to impact some wetlands. So we're working on ideas for how to do that better, along with all the other shoreline conservation work we're doing. Another update, oh shoot, wrong button, there we go. The Utah Lake Library Project. So we're working with the Herbert Institute at UVU to develop an online database of a library of just about anything and everything to do with Utah Lake. So history about the lake, research papers, policies, plans, so that people can go to one source and find good quality information to answer their questions. So for instance, I have searched for years and I know it's out there and I still haven't found it. But there is a study that shows that there are no longer residual effects from Geneva steel. After the cleanup and years that have passed, that's not really accurate to say that the water is tainted because of that. Or, it's another good example, carp and junesucker. There's been all kinds of research around how carp not only affect the junesucker, but they're actually affecting algae blooms as well. And so there's research into that topic that people can go learn about and find answers to questions. So we're working on trying to create that right now. The intern is scanning our paper library that the first Utah Lake Commission director made, Reed Price. It's like 12 or 15 of those plastic totes of like binders and proposals and all kinds of stuff. So it's going to take a while. This is probably a multi-year project, but we're hoping to partner with the Utah University to do that, host that through their library system. Market research, I mentioned that a couple of times. We're doing an economic impact analysis right now, trying to determine how much tourism dollars get brought in or sales tax dollars are brought in to the county because of Utah Lake. We also studied some things like perceptions of the lake. That's a study we did last year, trying to understand what are people's opinions about the lake and why do they have those opinions about the lake and what kind of changes they want to see. So we're fascinated with trying to learn and understand the perception so that we can hopefully improve that perception, right, and educate the public. Events and engagement. I don't know if you guys have heard about our newest event, the Great Carp Hunt. If any of you have seen Jaws, I have not. There's a scene, I guess, where the mayor like puts a bounty out on the shark and people are going out with pitchforks and all this kind of stuff. That's literally what we're doing. Any legal method of removing carp, which doesn't include pitchforks, you can remove carp as a part of the carp hunt. So the way this works, unlike other fishing tournaments where it's kind of like a one and done, like DWR does it or like a fishing group does, there are 10 carp hunts this year. One every month, February through November. 2 days at the end of the month. The first one is actually this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So if you come down here Saturday or Sunday from, I think it runs like 7:30 to 2:30 each day, you'll see anglers out on the shoreline, or if any of them are lucky enough to get a boat out, they might. But the whole goal is take as many carp out as you possibly can. So we have prizes every month. The more carp you take out, the more entries into the raffle, and the winning prize each month is a $1,000 cash prize. And the team that actually takes out the most that month gets, I think this month it's $25 gift cards to Al Sporting Goods for each team member. It can be up to 5 people on a team. And then the annual prize, raffle prize, is $10,000 cash. So our goal is to take out as much carp as we can, but people think that's the only goal. It's really not. Our real goal is to get people down to the lake and talking about it and learning about it. So this is not the only carp removal effort. I don't know if any of you have been out sailing and saw these weird pole and net systems in the lake this past summer. Anybody? See any of those? Couple people? Okay. So that's the main carp removal effort. This is icing on the cake. This is fun stuff. That's actually a method out of the University of Minnesota, Dr. Braegger. He's been doing carp removal up in Minnesota for a few years now. Those are an automated trap system. So it's basically, think of like a whole bunch of telephone poles that are, well, telephone poles, but not quite that big, attached to a net. It's sunk into the ground, and it has a computer sensor on it and a bait to be able to draw in the fish. And then they have certain fish tagged, there's a whole bunch of June suckers and other fish that are in there, not the carp themselves, because we're going to pull a carp out, we're going to get rid of it, not tag it, and put it back usually. But once the computer sensor registers a likelihood of enough fish, the trap springs up and they're stuck, and then we only have to send out a crew to get it when the net's ready. Versus the Loy family, which did an amazing job for so many generations, they basically fished themselves out of a job. But they were out there all the time, every weekend, hours at a time, trying to get what they could. So that's the main carp removal method. This is for the public relations sake, trying to draw attention to the lake, allow people to be involved. And a lot of the anglers have wanted one for a long time. I can't tell you how many times I've had the question of, why don't you run a tournament? The June Sucker program said at the time, when they started removing back in 2009, there was no comparison. The commercial netting removed tens of thousands of pounds, hundreds of thousands of pounds more than running tournaments, and there was no work for the June Sucker recovery program. They just paid the commercial crew to go do it. We have an events company this weekend. They're going to have 3 staff there. I have 2 staff and myself who've been working on it. It's a lot more time intensive to run a tournament. That said, we're pretty optimistic. This one, I think we're probably not going to go very high. I would guess, all right, you can't hold me to this, but my goal is if we can hit 10,000, I'd be super happy. Probably we're going to get maybe closer into the single-digit thousands just because of weather and this month. But to compare that, there was a bow fishing tournament on Utah Lake last year in April, and we're going to partner with them. That's actually going to be one of our events, is their bow fishing tournament. Their numbers, based on like a good weekend, a team of 2, how did they do it? It was 45 teams of 2 is how they broke it down, and obviously some are going to be better than others, right? Not everybody takes out the same amount. But they estimated that if everything went perfectly, they could take out 150,000 pounds of carp in a weekend. So, running 10 of these in a year, I'm not going to say it's going to be 1.5 million pounds. I doubt that. But even if we can get into a few 100,000 pounds extra taken out in a year on top of the other stuff, that'll be a win. But in my mind, the first win is the fact that people are down at the lake having fun, and we're getting the story out there and helping people learn about the lake. So I'll get off my soapbox about the great carp hunt and move on. Obviously, we have a lot of other events. Many of you have probably been to them, everywhere from our field trips, the Paddle with Care event, the festival, our scavenger hunt, our photo contest. We have our symposium we started a couple of years ago, and then the carp bow fishing tournament I mentioned with the Utah Bow Fishing Association. Comms and outreach. Oh, this is the fun visual example moment. We have a wonderful staff member who's pretty good at a little graphic design. And she has designed a couple of fun things. I have some stickers and other things you guys may have seen. But this is one that she did our first t-shirt. This is a Utah Lake Flora t-shirt. So these are all flowers that you can find at Utah Lake. And so she worked with our biologists. They went out and picked a few they liked, and she hand drew this. I mean, I think digitally, not like on paper. But this is not like pictures. This is her actually sketching this. And what you see on that slide is she's about to finish up. This is a print that we tested to try and see what the quality is going to look like. But we're doing a Birds of Utah Lake t-shirt. So these are a few of some of our favorites. Great blue heron, in my opinion, is the best one on there. Pelicans. We've got a white-faced ibis, an osprey, and a few others on there. But these are surprisingly a great tool. For example, Mayor Kafusi, Provo City Mayor, has been on the Lake Commission board, since she was elected, actually, yeah. And she currently serves as the chair of the Utah Lake Authority. And she loves to wear the various Utah Lake t-shirts we've made over the years while she's out on the trails, and she constantly has people stop and be like, greatest lake on earth, where is that? They're like, oh, is that Deer Creek? She's like, no, it's Utah Lake, the one that we love over here. So.
I think we should do one and take our favorite sailboats and have a
I'm game. We could collaborate on that. We love trying to find ways to get people to want to talk about the lake, to start conversations. In fact, I was wearing that same t-shirt. It had a sailboat on it, greatest lake on earth. This is probably 5 years ago now. I went to dinner at a neighbor's, and we were just getting to know each other. It was the first time we'd done something together with our families. And we're sitting there eating dinner, and he's like, "So, is your shirt a joke?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, it's a joke, right? Like, I only moved here a couple years ago, but everybody says Utah Lake's gross." And I was like, "Hold on a second. Do you not know what I do for work?" And so I gave him the 45-minute spiel about, here's why Utah Lake is so great. So we love doing things like that, whether it's tangibles or social media. We're working on a photo book for the first time ever from our photo contest. These prints are actually from that photo contest. We haven't done a book before, so that's something that will be available actually for purchase. But that's of photos from this most recent photo contest. Our website as well, obviously, too. But we love trying to find unique methods to get people to learn about the lake. Conservation. Our conservation biologist, which is, where's Addie Valdez. People love talking to her because she's just so dang smart. She loves keeping me in line too, because I usually say, like, I name birds the wrong names, or I give bad statistics about carp removal, and she's always correcting me. But we like to joke. I've never seen The Simpsons, but my boss is a huge fan of The Simpsons. I guess there's some episode where it's like a TV announcer or something says, "Now listen to this scientician tell you the truth," or whatever. It's like, that's not a real word. She's our scientician. She keeps us all in line. She works on a restoration project. So right now, for this year, she's ordered 40,000 plants. That's 15,000 more than we did last year. And we're going to work with a contractor for some of it, volunteers for other of it, more sod mats, more additional trees. These are some photos of those planting events that we did last year, just demonstrating some of the areas we went to all across the lake. I think we planted in 5 or 7 different areas around the shoreline. We're testing out a lot of different types of vegetation, different times of year, different habitats, so that we can figure out what's the best mix so that we can make the lake thrive on the shoreline. She also is working through a lot of different funding and grants. We have $1.5 million from the Division of Water Quality through the Utah Lake Preservation Fund that is going to supercharge our shoreline restoration efforts. So you'll potentially see additional activities starting even as early as this summer out on the lake for the next 2 years. We're also going to use that to do some things like mapping, trying to better document what kinds of species are where, and make it a better coordinated effort. She's also designing she has her work group, and they're forming an actual management plan so that we actually have something on paper that documents best practices, targets different areas, like Powell Slough is prime habitat for wetland, and so we want to focus in on getting different types of plants in there to test out. So she's working on a lot of amazing things. She also works with a lot of different groups like the Stormwater Coalition. That's a group of stormwater departments from the various cities in the county trying to work on how can we improve stormwater that gets to the lake to try and reduce pollution, because stormwater is not treated. At least I don't think any cities in Utah County treat their stormwater. Spanish Fork has kind of led the way on what's it called? Low impact development, LID, which is basically retaining stormwater on site instead of piping it off to the lake. And that is actually a great method because it still returns it to the water table, but keeps all those nutrients from our roads and our trails and stuff from getting down to Utah Lake. So she works across a variety of groups. She's a great resource for us. Okay, so that's our current work. A few things coming in the near future. Some of you may have heard of Wakara Way, an open space park. I think I made this joke last year. That's not a park like a playground and grass and soccer fields. An open space park is preserving an open space and providing some basic amenities to be able to enjoy it. This is something that's been on the books for a long time and got hung up with a couple of difficulties, primarily around ownership of the land. So our agency hired a mediator last year. She's actually the same mediator that worked on the Deepwater Horizon settlement, so she's like a ringer. But we've basically been working with the landowners, the state government, and the federal government to try and resolve the disputes over the property boundaries so that we can move forward with this project. Mainly, the main interest we have is connecting the trail so that you can actually go from the Provo River Delta all the way up to Vineyard. That's the section that's missing in Orem right now. So that's a little bit further off this chart than you can see all the way right up to here. There's nothing right there. The trail stops there, and it stops down here at the Delta right now. There'll also be some other basic amenities. We haven't decided, and we need to work through a public process and with partners to figure out what all amenities would go in there. So right now our focus is trying to resolve that, but we've seen some good progress. One of the landowners is about to sign an agreement, and another one has already expressed a willingness to. We just need to get it drafted. And then there's or more, depending on the route of the trail that we need to finish it up. So we're hopeful that in the next few years, because we already have some funding in place, the county secured, that we could actually see sections of this trail going in, would be our hope. Also in the near future, I already mentioned the recreation access plan coming out. That'll really guide and kickstart our projects. We really did not want to start just willy-nilly doing projects, which is why for the last 2 years, we've done a few minimal things, but we've not tackled anything large scale across the lake. Setting up regular public feedback I mentioned, trying to provide more opportunities for the public to participate in how we manage the lake. We're trying to do a lot of wetland protection. I know you heard me hit a lot on the recreation stuff, that's because that's my passion, but a big part of what we do as management of the lake is conserving the shoreline. So we're actually working with a few landowners right now that are interested in doing a conservation easement. Backtracking really quick, because I didn't know what this term was either. You don't have to raise a hand or anything, but if you didn't know, a conservation easement is basically paying a landowner to not develop their land. You're not buying the land itself, but you're paying a fee for in perpetuity that land to be protected forever. And you can do different things with those easements. Some farmers like to do them to preserve their agricultural land. There's a lot of wetland conservation easements, and there can also be conservation easements that include things like recreational amenities too, to try and protect public access and protect the vegetation on the shoreline. The Nature Center, I mentioned that $5 million. I don't have any charts or pictures with me, but the current plan is to work with Linden City on a parcel of land they own behind Linden Marina, so that we can have the Nature Center immediately adjacent to that marina. This will be a multi-purpose building. It'll be classroom space, lab space for universities and researchers, meeting space kind of like this. I would hope maybe a little bit bigger and better Wi-Fi. We've talked about things even like a gift shop for some of the swag, outdoor educational elements to it, and thankfully, finally, office space. 8 years I've worked at the lake and I've never actually had an office at the lake, but would love to actually be down there regularly. So that's coming. We have $5 million from the federal government. I believe this year we're maybe, well, I guess we're playing heavens.
Yeah.
That was loud. I guess the session ends on March 7th, so we're a couple weeks out from finding out, but we believe we're supposed to get another $2 million from the state so that we can start potentially as soon as this next fiscal year, starting in July, on finishing the land agreement, beginning the design work and permitting, et cetera. And then we'll need to seek additional funding. Current estimate, because this is in partnership with UVU, the current estimate is $21 million to build the building, the parking, there's going to be a trail connection to the trail and such. So it'll be a multi-year process. But optimistically, if we can get all of our ducks in a row, it could be as early as maybe 3 years from now, we could potentially have a nature center at the lake. Of course, now that I said that, I'm going to knock on wood, because it's going to be 10 years if I'm not aware. Shoreline revegetation, sorry. That's going to be, as I said, a big push that you're going to see in the near future, is working to put more plants in the ground and trying to do more seed and get the shoreline green in the appropriate areas, right? We're not going to go seed Sandy Beach, but we want to make sure we're bringing back that good vegetation. Water quality improvements. The Utah Lake Water Quality Study has been an ongoing study, a partnership between our agency, the Utah Division of Water Quality, and like 15 other stakeholders, cities, state agencies, a couple federal agencies, and it's about to wrap up. Either by the end of this year or mid next year, they're supposed to have what they would call their implementation plan done, and that plan then enables us and our partners to go take action on water quality. In the meantime, they've been doing a lot of research, and we've done some pilot testing, like you guys may have heard me speak about, or others talk about, some algae bloom treatments that have been tested out. So there's been some work testing it, but that'll be based on all of the research gathered together. What should we try next, and what will be most bang for our buck? I do want to be clear, a lot of people think the outcome of this study is going to be the wastewater treatment plants have to do upgrades, which nobody likes because that raises our sewer rates. There's definitely a possibility that's going to happen, but that is not the only lever they want to pull. Another idea that I think is really fascinating is one of the implementation plan recommendations is likely going to be replanting macrophytes. That's a fancy word for the plants underwater. Utah Lake, previous to carp being introduced, was actually macrophyte dominated. There was a lot of underwater vegetation in the lake, and that's part of why the lake was clearer than it is now. Is carp came in, rooted out all that vegetation, now all the sediment is loose to be able to be re-stirred up into the water body, and it shifted the ecosystem to what's called a benthic, I think is the word they use, basically an algae dominant So there's some interesting ideas, some preliminary research that we should do some pilot studies. So we're talking about doing, the first one we're looking at is called a carp exclusionary study, where we're basically looking at trying to put in, imagine as like an underwater fence to block out carp and test putting some vegetation in and see what happens. So that's a project we're looking into right now with the Division of Water Quality and others. But I'm excited for that plan to be wrapped up, because that's what we've mostly been waiting on, is we didn't want to go spend a bunch of public dollars on treatments that were either temporary or might not work based off we were still completing the study. To put things in perspective, the marina treatments you guys may have seen over the last few years, one estimate we got 4 years ago, was to treat the entire lake 3 times, I think, in a summer, was $500,000. And the treatment would only be effective for potentially a couple of weeks. If it got really bad with nutrients and stuff, it could even be only a couple of days. So we don't want to go pursue a whole bunch of those treatments and spend money